Yeah, folks, another season of Marvel Snap cards have been officially revealed. We've got a beach-themed season coming to Marvel Snap, and I think a few of the cards actually could be pretty darn strong. I think we have multiple max ratings in this video for cards. But I have to start with a rant before we get into the cards, because I hate that the base versions of the cards are like goofy beach-themed versions of the characters, minus Submariner, which is like the only character we already have a card for, I guess Jeff too. But like Namorita here, she's playing volleyball on the base card. Give me the base version of the character and then do variants with the goofy stuff, right? Like I don't know who Triton is. I don't really care about this character at all, but I hate that his base version is not like a cool, epic, awesome version. It's just him playing in a pool. Monstro is a freaking DJ. I mean, for all I know, this character could be a DJ, but it just seems wrong to me that the base, like, I want my base versions to all match and be like serious renditions of the cards, not beach themed. Or if they are at least going to do that, like literally write beach party at the bottom or whatever, right? Pool party or something at the bottom. So it's like acknowledging that it's a part of a theme as opposed. So anyway, rant over. That's my rant. That's all I'm going to say. Let's talk about the cards. This is Jeff, the Baby Dolphin, the new season pass card. He is a 2/2. He reads, your cards reveal here with +1 power, and then he is movable once, which I really like this effect, actually. I think this is like super flexible, and we know how much boosting the power of a card by 1 can actually kind of add up. Like just from a base standpoint, right? There's a couple ways to play this, like just literally, you know, if he's in one spot, you play 3 cards behind him, you move him, you play another 3 cards behind him in the next spot. That's 6 cards played. That's +6 power. That would make him effectively 2/8. You're already talking about a card that has some pretty solid numbers. That's, you know, way bigger than like Maximus or whatever the biggest 2 drops, Lizard, etc. But beyond that, of course, we know that power can influence cards in more significant ways. Play a Captain Carter, and it's like, okay, man, I've suddenly tripled Jeff's buff. Like, that's really cool. But also play like Kitty Pryde, you know, or bounce decks. You can play many things behind Jeff. Play other move cards behind Jeff. Drop a Nightcrawler and you make even more space. You could get far more than just 6 buffs potentially off your Jeff, the Baby Dolphin. So at a base, I think this could easily pump out an extra 4 to 6 power that scales favorably. And then in certain decks, certain scenarios, you might see this thing pumping out an extra 10, 12 power sometimes, or even effectively more than that as it hits so many other things. You know, you hit Captain Carter into stick, as we just saw in yesterday's video, and it's like, man, Jeff is pumping out some crazy numbers. We're going to see another card here soon too, which could even help further. So yeah, man, this just looks like really good. I think kind of like generically good and like a tempo sort of idea. That old school like Angela package with, you know, Angela and Elsa and Kitty and so on. Like Jeff kind of fits in there as an alternate Angela that I think sort of better because he's adding power to the other stuff instead of power to himself, which just seems like it has way more upside, and the movable aspect too is really nice. Can be generally great anyway. So just like a kind of do everything sort of card that just puts out numbers, like this just looks good and solid, right? Like I think this is a play it in all kinds of decks 2-drop, and we're going to see this one a lot because of that reason. So next up here is Venus. This is a 3/3. And it reads, when your cards in play are empowered, which means basically they get a permanent power boost. So, you know, cards like Jeff offer a permanent power boost. Cards like Bishop, Angela, etc. That same kind of package we were just talking about, right? Those all get power, permanent power boost, so they're empowered. You then give those cards an additional +1 power. So, like we talked about, you play Jeff on 2, Venus on 3. She herself can be buffed actually by Jeff, right? And it doesn't say other cards. So she would instantly jump to 3/5 instead of 3/4. And then, you know, if you have a Bishop coming in later, he's going to gain +2 points every single time you play a card instead of just gaining +1. So like doubling the scaling basically of all these point scalers, which, you know, I will acknowledge the cards like Angela and Bishop have not kept up in modern times, but this is exactly the sort of thing that I think could bring them back into the limelight again and be like, hey, these numbers are now getting so big off the back of Venus that maybe that becomes actually a competitive package once more, which I think would be awesome. I like those kind of more honest, straightforward numbers go up decks like that are kind of incrementing in smaller portions. But that said, they might still get eclipsed because you also just like, it's like, hey, actually I'm still just gonna play this with like Stick and Captain Carter, and like those are still really good with Venus as well. You've also of course got Silver Surfer in the mix when you're talking about a 3-drop, so that's a whole other conversation as well. It's like, well, shoot, maybe this is all just Silver Surfer fodder at the end of the day. And Surfer of course also empowering your 3-drops, so it kind of makes your Surfer +3 instead of +2, right? I don't know how this works exactly with like stacking on Shaw, but I don't think it does any weird loops or anything probably. But you can just see like so many different worlds where this card suddenly makes a lot of sense. Like obviously it's going to scale better the more buffs you have. So for instance, you know, something doing +1 multiple times versus like, you know, Surfer doing +2 in a single hit. Like you want more ticks basically, but still Surfer seems really good. And you can see why cards like Kahori were changed too, because Kahori, you know, if it buffed like 7 times, that would be like a +14 buff off Venus or whatever. Whereas right now the way Kahori works, she kind of like splits. If you hit one target with 3 points, it counts as a single buff, so it would go from 3 to 4 with Venus, not from 3 to 6 with Venus as it would have in the old Kahori. But that probably would have just been totally broken. So no surprise there that had to be changed. That said, I think this card still just does a lot, has a lot of interesting homes. We're seeing these kind of numbery decks making sense too lately. So as far as I'm concerned, like Venus and Jeff both look good, and they certainly go together as well. So pretty strong 1-2 punch here for the season pass card and the super duper mega ultra premium season pass card too. All right, moving on here to Monstro. I think this one is unchanged since we saw the data mined version. He's still an 8/8. This card's cost is reduced by the cost of your deck's top card. So basically play this in a deck with a bunch of big dudes, and Monstro will be a super cheap, pretty big dude. You know, you have a 6-drop on the top of your deck, for instance. Monstro is a 2/8, which actually pretty good. Like that's actually already kind of competitive with some of the other like 2-drops we see in like big ramp decks at chamber space. He sometimes could get a little bigger, but often would land in that kind of 2/8, 2/10 range. I think Monstro is there. And if you're getting into even bigger territory, if you have Fin Fang Foom, if you're running Death, if you have Erisham in your deck, Dormammu, I don't think you're going to play in Dormammu decks, but you get the idea. Scar, I guess, actually kind of makes some sense. Then he could go down to 1/8 or even 0/8, which obviously a 1/8 or a 0/8 is crazy strong. Like that is super flexible. So I could see this in those decks that are running those big dudes. It's sometimes nice to have that slightly cheaper, higher flexibility card to sort of weave in alongside your bigger stuff. Because if you're running a ramp deck in particular, you get to like 7 energy and it's like, well, I got my big 6-drop, but nothing to do with it. And it's like, well, now maybe you have a big 6-drop or perhaps a big 5-drop and a Monstro to go with it. And it's like, well, sometimes you had like Chamber or Moondragon in those decks or something, but you can't really play those late. But Monstro, the cool thing is you can play both early. If you just hit turn 2 and he's lining up, you have a 6-drop, like, okay, sure, I'll just play my 2/8 on turn 2. But also you might be able to play him late as well in certain scenarios as well. Weaving him in with like a 5-drop on the final turn could actually be really nice. So I like that increased flexibility. There's also just like some other big deck cards like Hydro Man or whatever also kind of plays into that, where you just have a lot of high cost stuff you want to set lower. I do guess based on the wording here with Monstro, it does have a lowercase cost, which I noticed specifically in the blog. Whereas when I did look at him on like snap.fan, he did have a capital C. It was a little bit inconsistent, but I went with the official blog version of the card, right? So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But anyway, if you did use like a Hydro Man and set it to 1, I think your Monstro would read 7/8 as this, you know, as this is written currently. So there is always that risk too, that like if your deck has any other cheap cards, right, your Monstro is going to be pretty expensive. But I think even sometimes if this were a 4/8, I think you're not happy about it, but you'll play that sometimes, right? In a deck like that, if you don't have anything else to do. And, you know, certainly 3/8 is fine. 2/8's really good. Anything less than that's like, you know, insane, of course. So, you know, this one's kind of on the edge for me. Like, I think it makes sense. At the same time, is it adding enough to those decks that they really want to give up the card slot for it? Because that slot is, you know, that's valuable. There's some opportunity cost there. So it's like one of those where it's like, I could see this kind of being fine and working in those decks, but at the same time, maybe not like being the disruptor that actually makes the cut or changes the deck. And it's like, well, people just kind of forget about Monstro. So a card I think I will love. It's exactly the kind of card I like. Honest numbers, big dudes. Like that's my style of thing. Is it going to be great? Maybe okay. Feels like the ceiling on this one, but you never know. So next up here is Jubilee Silver Surfer, which the beach aspect of this card is almost hidden enough here that I don't mind that she's a beach themed card. She kind of looks like, she's obviously, on water, but it's like maybe it's in space. Maybe it's a space planet, right? Like, I don't know. This just looks like one of my thumbnails, though, for the record. This is a 4/2. She still reads same as Data Mines. When you draw a card, add this card's power to it. Now, do keep in mind she has to be in play for that effect. It's not like she can just sit in hand forever and buff your cards. But if you play her down at a base, she's going to add 2 power to all of your top decks. So if she's a 4-cost card, you're kind of saying like the cards that I draw specifically on turn 5 and 6 would get 2 extra power, which that's not worth it, right? Like, even if you played both of those, which you won't always play both of those, that would only be 6 total points of output. That is terrible, right? That's miserable, awful. Even if those points like scale with other stuff, like give me stick, right? Give me whatever. Don't give me Jubilee Silver Surfer. So you have to buffer in a way to make it worth it. I still think it's going to be challenging to like line that up well. I mean, like, we saw it with Stick and like Captain Carter. My brain was melting for a second there. Like, it can work, right? Like, if you play this behind a Captain Carter or whatever, like, you could push her up bigger, get her to 4, get her to 6 or whatever. It's the same sort of idea, but then you're beholden to your draw. Like, what do you draw? Is it a card that's going to synergize with all those points really well? When I look at something like Stick, and it's like, well, I know what I'm getting. I have a plan. I'm putting it on the card I care about specifically, not just some random top deck. And it's like, yeah, she hits multiple cards. Maybe that starts to be worth it after a while. There's possibilities there, but I just think like the awkwardness and the inconsistencies are what's really going to feel like it holds this one back. If this were a 3-cost card, I'd be like over the moon. I'd be like, oh my God, this can do so many cool things. Like, I can see the lines here. I get 3 draws out of it. So then I have a question of like, well, do you make it like a card draw deck? And we're going to see some additional synergy for that later in the video as well. So it's like, do you make it a card draw deck? It's just about like drawing as many cards and like boosting those drawn cards in a way. So, maybe it's Daredevil and you have like King Eitri, and instead of hitting King Eitri immediately, you save the King Eitri, right? And then you get an extra card juiced up by Jubilee. And it's like, if I get 3 or 4 draws instead of just 2, maybe it's worth it. Or maybe you cheat the Jubilee out sooner. That doesn't seem really worth it to me still. But at the end of the day, though, it's like, man, I'm doing a lot of work. Like a lot of work, both getting this down in time, but also buffing it in a substantial way. And then I still have to tank some of that inconsistency. Like, that feels like a problem to me. I personally feel like this card could just be a lot bigger. It's interesting that it's, been play tested and stayed at this value. So maybe I'm underrating it a little bit. Like, the fact that it didn't get buffed almost makes me think I'm missing an angle on it. And maybe it really is that Stick effect where it's like you can do the same sort of thing with Jubilee and it's worth it. But I don't know. I feel like the inflexibility of your draw and the inconsistency and unpredictability of your draw is just going to be what holds it back. So I am like a little soft on this card. I think the awkwardness is going to win out here. So next up here is Submariner. This one actually got changed quite a bit. I believe this was a 2-cost card when we last saw it, but now it's a 1/2. Super cheap, super flexible card here. And it reads, when this is empowered, add a random 1-cost character to your hand with that same increase, if in hand or in play. So every time you buff this guy, basically kind of like Clea, whether he's in hand or in play, so you could have like the Marvel Boy stuff, you could have the Nakia stuff, either direction, Viv Vision turn after turn, right? You're going to get an extra 1-cost character to hand that's going to be buffed the same. So, if you add an Echo to hand, because your Submariner got buffed by 1, that's going to be a 1/3 Echo. If you add a Hydra Bob to hand, it's going to be 1/5 Hydra Bob. Now, the way this is written, I don't think if you like use Viv Vision, for instance, and buff Submariner 3 times, I don't think the third 1-cost you add to hand would have +3 power. Is it based on Submariner's current total increase, or that same increase? To me, the way that's written makes me think it's like per increase, right? And also, like, how does that work with Venus? Like, does the +1 from Venus Does that make the card copy at +2 or +1? Some questions there, but we did see in the reveal video for this one, like Stick, for instance, giving it like +20 power or whatever, adds a +20 power card to your hand, right? So you can get like a 1 cost with 20 power. Just hope it's not Ebony Maw, I suppose, so you can actually play it. So there are still some real cheesy possibilities here. Plus, I just like this as sort of like this value generator, this like ultimate curve filler where it's like you get to stack up your hand buffs. And like some of the problems with hand buffs is like not having enough stuff to like get buffed or having enough energy flexibility to like play all that out. But now I'm envisioning these worlds with like Viv Vision where you're just like creating this stack of extra cards in hand. And they just keep getting buffed turn after turn. And they have like a dump on turn 6 where you're dropping like 4 or 5 1-drops that all have, some power boosts. Like that might actually just kind of work, especially if you're already playing regular cards and it's just Submariner alone sitting in hand generating all that extra value, right? Or maybe it's just like every turn I get to weave in a little extra 1-drop or whatever because he keeps generating me dudes. So I think there's something kind of cool about this card, whether it's that big crazy 20 power stick buff that's kind of like a Krakoa or something almost, or it's that little overtime hand generation that's kind of neat too. I can see a couple angles on that. Like, is this a Hitmonkey enabler? Like, is this, Black Swan and Hitmonkey stuff could go crazy. So there's some neat lines with this card. I think this one's actually surprisingly high potential. And the fact that it's a 1/2 is also really cool. So, I'm looking at Marvel Boy. I'm looking at Clea. I'm looking at some cool buff deck tying all that together and doing some really sweet stuff. So next up here is Namorita. We have Namor, Namora, and Namorita. Namorita. It's hard to say that one for me. This card is totally different than when we saw it Data Mined. I mean, like completely new effect, which is always cool to see. It's a 3/5, and it reads, when you draw a card, give it -1 cost if this is your only card here. This is another example where cost is capitalized instead of lowercase. I copied this again, I believe, from the official blog. I don't know. Let's not look into that too much. But this is another one that's like, creating, like we said, card draw payoff. Like with Jubilee here, if you're drawing extra cards, you're getting more benefits out of Namorita here. And between the two in particular, right, like you might actually just be able to stack up to do some really cool stuff where it's like, I play Daredevil, Namorita, Jubilee. Even if the Jubilee's not buffed yet, like maybe I have a King Eitri down and I'm drawing a 0/8 demon, and it's like, man, that's actually just so cool that it's worth it. And then perhaps any other draw is also fine because Namorita is going to hit 3 cards here basically on turns 4, 5, and 6, even just organically, maybe more with magic or we said Eitri other card draw effects. And it's like, man, okay, so she's actually worth -3 cost. That could open up a lot of flexibility in certain decks. Some decks maybe wouldn't care about that flexibility because it's like, well, my 6-drop became 5. I don't have anything else to do with it anyway, and it's kind of wasted. But you could still see plenty of decks where it's like, man, okay, yeah, this is letting me weave in an entire extra card here or there. I think Silver Surfer decks in particular, like they have that awkward turn 5 sometimes that they're not playing stuff like Sarah, although Mother Ascani also opens up some opportunity there. But like Namorita as a 3-drop in a Silver Surfer deck, right? Suddenly you get a 2-cost, 3-cost card for your turn 5 play, and it's really nice. And maybe you get a couple cheap ones for turn 6 as well and do a cool play that way too. So 3 2-cost 3-drops basically for turn 6. I mean, like there's alternate options there where you play this on turn 3, like, okay, I can start to see some real benefits here. I don't think every deck, like I said, will value that, but I think some certainly could. The question becomes, of course, her being alone, is that a problem? I don't think so. Like her being your only card here is not really an issue because you can just fill out that spot on turn 6 with your flexibility. You'll have already drawn everything anyway, and you got lots more flexibility because all your cards are discounted. So I think that's totally fine. I think this card's pretty intriguing. I would like to play around with some like actual card draw stuff in Marvel Snap, which we don't have much of. Moving on here to Quicksand. This is a 2/4, and it reads, the next time your opponent would start a turn with bonus energy, they don't get it, which this card's like a month later, whatever. This was the dream card for everybody when Star-Lord was running rampant with all his extra energy. Ever since that got nerfed and has kind of fallen away, I hardly ever see Star-Lord anymore. Sometimes in Surfer decks, but lately not even that so much. The need for Quicksand has seemingly sunk into Quicksand. I don't know if anyone's excited about this card anymore because it's only going to work like once, right? Like you kind of just play your 2/4 and it's like, yeah, okay, it's going to shut them down at some point, but you know, what decks right now are using that bonus energy to great effect? There's still Wiccan decks out there sometimes. You very occasionally run into like Erisham. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples as well. I mean, Luna Snow, etc. is, you know, around there, but it's like you're only disrupting one turn, and if it's not like the big crazy Star-Lord turn or whatever, where you're completely locking them out, if you're just, in other words, denying them one extra energy for one turn, like, is that worth it? Like, am I playing a dead card in 90% of my matchups or whatever, 80% of my matchups that's only a 2/4 for that like one energy denial for all the decks in the meta right now? I don't think you are. In other words, I think this card is going to be completely unplayed until perhaps Star-Lord or some similar card comes along and does like a big energy turn where it's more about cheating 5 energy at once as opposed to 1, because those little incremental turns, this card's just not going to be that impactful at all. Like, yes, occasionally it could break a specific combo or whatever, but you're just running a 2/4 in every other deck. Like, that is really, really tough. Also, it surprised me this card's not like an on reveal. Something with this wording, I don't know. It kind of feels like it should be an on reveal because it's like a one-time thing. Because the next time, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I just don't think this card's going to be very good at all right now. So our final card here is Triton. He is a 3/4, and he now reads, on reveal, give the last character each player played last turn +3 powers. This is kind of a like post hoc buff here, where you played something down, your Captain Carter or whatever, and you now give it +3 power, which, you know, that kind of targeted buff can still be really valuable and stuff. It is a fixed value buff at 3 power. Triton's not particularly big himself, which is concerning, and it's also a symmetrical buff, which, like, you know, it's giving the opponent power too. I don't love that, right? Like, when we first saw this card, I think the buff was bigger, and I think maybe Triton was bigger too, so he actually got nerfed. And I'm thinking to myself, like, was he really that broken that he got nerfed? I mean, you know, we do see like Jubilee is like a great example of a card that would do really well with power, but, you know, if you play Jubilee on turn 4 and then Triton on turn 5, like, you only get one draw off the boosted Jubilee anyway. Like, that doesn't seem that strong to me in the scheme of Marvel Snap these days. That still seems kind of clunky and awkward. It's like, yeah, there's like, you know, Surfer or whatever. There's like a few things that look fine. Captain Carter, like, sure, right? But this is not like more crazy than like an Ironheart or something from the buff standpoint. And then again, you're buffing your opponent as well. So it's really only a net 3/4 in actual gain over your opponent, which is terrible for a 3-drop. Like, yes, of course, your +3 can scale more. I get it. But compared to other cards, like, really? Like, do I need this? Like, yeah, it's targeted unlike Ironheart. I get it. Like, there's all these extra little technical hooks there that are like technically better in some ways, or like technically advantageous. But then you just look at the numbers, like the raw output doesn't really seem that good to me, you know? It's like, yeah, and it's like clunky, and like timing wise, like, actually that can be kind of a restriction too, like a little bit weird and clunky from a timing standpoint. So it's like, what am I using this in? Why do I care about this? Like, what card's really good here with this? I just seems like it's kind of in the wrong direction. The numbers are all too small, and I'm thinking it didn't get nerfed because it was too good, but it got nerfed because it's a Series 4 or limited time game mode card, and they were like, hey man, we've been giving out too many bangers lately. Like, Mother Scotty, I now think Stick is actually kind of a banger. Like, I don't know. You hate to be conspiratorial about that, but like, I just don't really see it with this card. This looks to me like the numbers aren't there. The timing is not there. This looks bad. Also, he's just got like a volleyball in the pool, and I hate that. Like, I'm sure somebody out there loves the character Triton, and they just are so mad that this is what his base art looks like. I mean, maybe he has cool variants, right? But then you got to buy those. Like, you got to get those. You know what I mean? Like, I want the base cards to look like the character. I'm over that rant. Anyway, that's this month in Marvel Snap. So let's go ahead and rate all these cards from 1 to 4 stars, starting with the best and going to the worst. Jeff the Baby Dolphin is a 4-star card. Venus is a 4-star card. Namorita is a 4-star card. Submariner is a 3-star card. Monstro is a 2-star card. Jubilee Silver Surfer is a 2-star card. Triton is a 1-star card. Quicksand is a 1-star card. Yeah, man, what a well-distributed month. I think, did I literally have 2 cards at every star rating? That's unheard of. Particularly because we don't usually have that many like 1-star cards. It's a pretty rare score for me, but I just don't love those. Maybe I had 3 and 4 actually, if I recall. I don't know. Anyway, a couple really big standouts, I think. Jeff and Venus both seem really strong to me. I see a lot of potential with Namorita and actually Submariner too. Like that's a pretty high 3-star for me, I guess. Yeah, I think I gave 3 4s and only 1 3. But you know, Namorita was like 3.75 rounded up. Namor was like 3.49 rounded down. You know what I mean? Anyway, but I think a couple standout cards for sure. So anyway, share your thoughts on these cards below. Do you hate the beach stuff as much as I do, or am I just a lunatic? It's like, it's crazy to me that Submariner's the only one that doesn't look beach themed, and we already have a Namor. Like that's from anyway. Enjoy the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I guess I will see you around.